You know, there's something rather interesting about real transformation. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't make a show. It happens in silence, in the privacy of your own consciousness, where no one else can see it. And I want to talk to you today about elimination, about letting go, about the things you must quietly remove from your life if you want to live with any real freedom or clarity. Now, why quietly? Why the secrecy? Because the moment you announce your transformation, you've turned it into a performance. You've made it about other people's perception of you rather than about your actual inner change. Real transformation happens in the dark, like a seed germinating underground. By the time others see the flower, the most important work has already been done in silence. So let me give you 10 things that you must quietly eliminate from your life. But I warn you, these are not the usual self-help platitudes. These are deeper, more fundamental, more uncomfortable. And the reason you must eliminate them quietly is because others will not understand. They may even try to stop you, to pull you back, because your transformation threatens their comfort in their own unconsciousness. 1. The need to be understood. This is perhaps the most difficult to let go of, because we're social creatures. We want people to get us, to see us, to understand why we do what we do. But here's the truth. Most people will never understand you. Not because they're stupid or uncaring, but because they're looking at you through the filter of their own experience, their own wounds, their own limited perspective. When you eliminate the need to be understood, something miraculous happens. You become free to be exactly who you are, without constantly explaining yourself, justifying yourself, defending yourself. You stop wasting enormous amounts of energy trying to make people see things from your perspective. You simply live your truth and allow others to interpret it however they will. But you must do this quietly, because if you announce, "I no longer need to be understood," you're still performing for an audience. You're still seeking validation, just in a different form. Real freedom from needing to be understood happens when you simply stop explaining yourself and notice that nothing terrible happens. 2. The fantasy of who you should be. We all carry an image of our ideal self, the person we think we should be, more disciplined, more successful, more spiritual, more attractive, more accomplished. And we spend our lives trying to become this fantasy person, feeling guilty and inadequate because we're not there yet. But here's what you must see. That fantasy person doesn't exist and will never exist. You are who you are right now, with all your contradictions and imperfections and peculiarities. And when you eliminate the fantasy of who you should be, you can finally start living as who you actually are. This elimination must be quiet, because your family, your society, your culture has invested heavily in your becoming a certain kind of person. When you stop trying to be that person, when you stop performing that role, people will be disturbed. They'll try to pull you back. They'll tell you you're not living up to your potential, that you're settling, that you're giving up. But you're not giving up. You're waking up. You're recognizing that the game of becoming was always rigged, always designed to keep you in a state of perpetual inadequacy, and you're simply opting out. 3. The belief that your thoughts are reality. You think thousands of thoughts per day. Most of them are repetitive, negative, fearful, or completely random. And yet, you believe them. You take them seriously. You let them determine your mood, your decisions, your sense of self. When you eliminate the belief that your thoughts are reality, you discover something extraordinary. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're like clouds passing through the sky of your consciousness. Sometimes dark, sometimes light, but never the sky itself. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. This must be done quietly, because if you tell people, "I no longer believe my thoughts," they'll think you've lost your mind. And in a way you have. You've lost the tyranny of the thinking mind. You've discovered the space of pure awareness that exists beneath all thought. And from that space, you can observe thoughts without being controlled by them. 4. Resistance to what is. This is the root of almost all suffering. Reality is what it is. The present moment is what it is. But we spend enormous energy resisting it, wishing it were different, thinking it shouldn't be this way. We argue with reality, and we lose every single time. When you eliminate resistance to what is, you don't become passive or accepting of injustice. You become profoundly effective because you're no longer wasting energy fighting reality. You see clearly what is, and from that clarity, you can respond appropriately rather than react from resistance. Do this quietly. Don't announce to everyone that you've accepted reality. They'll misunderstand and think you've given up on changing anything. But accepting what is doesn't mean you don't act to change things. It means you stop arguing with the present moment while you work toward a different future. 5. The addiction to being right. Oh, this is a big one. We love being right. We love the feeling of superiority that comes from proving someone else wrong. We defend our positions, our beliefs, our opinions with ferocity. And in the process, we close ourselves off from learning, from growing, from seeing things in new ways. When you eliminate the need to be right, conversations become easier, relationships become smoother. You become genuinely curious about other perspectives, rather than just waiting for your turn to argue. You realize that being right is far less important than being at peace, being connected, being open. But if you announce this elimination, if you say, I no longer need to be right, watch what happens. People will immediately try to prove you wrong about not needing to be right. The whole thing becomes a paradox. So you do it quietly, you simply stop arguing, stop defending, stop needing to have the last word, and you watch how much energy this frees up. 6. The comparison game. Every time you compare yourself to others, you lose. Either you feel superior and become arrogant, or you feel inferior and become depressed. The comparison game is rigged because you're comparing your insides to everyone else's outsides. You're comparing your full reality to their curated highlight reel. When you eliminate comparison, you eliminate most of your suffering. You can finally run your own race, live your own life, follow your own path without constantly looking sideways to see how you measure up. You become free to be mediocre at things that don't matter to you and excellent at things that do. This must be quiet because we live in a comparison-obsessed culture. If you announce that you're no longer comparing yourself to others, people will think you've become complacent, that you're justifying laziness. But you're not. You're simply recognizing that your path is unique, your timing is your own, and comparison is a form of violence against your own unfolding. 7. The need for closure. We want everything tied up neatly. We want explanations for why things happened. We want apologies from people who hurt us. We want resolution to every conflict, clarity in every confusion, endings to every story. But life doesn't work that way. When you eliminate the need for closure, you become able to live with ambiguity, with uncertainty, with unfinished business. You recognize that some questions will never be answered, some relationships will never have a clean ending, some hurts will never be acknowledged by the person who caused them. And you are okay with this. Not because you've become hard or cynical, but because you've learned to find closure within yourself, rather than needing it from external circumstances or other people. Do this quietly because people will want to give you advice, to help you get closure. They mean well, but they don't understand that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let go without resolution, walk away without the last word, move on without understanding why. 8. The performance of morality. There's a difference between being good and performing goodness. Many people do the right things for the wrong reasons. They're kind because they want to be seen as kind. They're generous because they want to feel superior. They're spiritual because they want to be admired. When you eliminate the performance of morality, you become genuinely good. Not good because you're trying to be, but good because it's natural to you. You help people without needing credit. You're kind without needing recognition. You do the right thing when no one is watching. This must be absolutely quiet. The moment you talk about your good deeds, you've turned them into a performance again. Real virtue is invisible. It happens in the small, unseen moments. It's the thought you don't think, the word you don't say, the action you take when no one will ever know it was you. 9. The addiction to potential. So many people live in the future. They're always becoming, always preparing, always getting ready for the real life that will start once they've achieved this goal or overcome that obstacle. They're addicted to their potential, to what they could be, and this addiction prevents them from being what they actually are. When you eliminate the addiction to potential, you start living now. You recognize that this moment is your life, not preparation for life, not a stepping stone to some future moment. This is it. You are already everything you need to be, and everything else is just elaboration on the theme. Keep this quiet, because we live in a culture obsessed with potential, with growth, with becoming. If you say you're satisfied with who you are right now, people will think you've given up on self-improvement, but you haven't. You've given up on postponing your life until some imaginary future when you're finally good enough. 10. The illusion of control. This is perhaps the deepest elimination. We believe we're in control of our lives. We think we're the authors of our story, the captains of our ship. But the truth is, most of what happens to us is completely beyond our control. We don't control the weather, the economy, other people's choices, our own thoughts, our health, or even the next breath we take. When you eliminate the illusion of control, you don't become passive. You become profoundly responsive. You distinguish between what you can influence and what you cannot. You stop exhausting yourself trying to control the uncontrollable. You relax into the flow of life rather than constantly swimming against it. This must be the quietest elimination of all, because people will think you're advocating for fatalism, for not taking responsibility. But it's the opposite. When you accept that you're not in control, you become able to respond to what actually is rather than what you wish things were. You become more effective, not less, because you're working with reality instead of against it. Now, here's what I want you to understand about these eliminations. You don't announce them. You don't make a show of them. You don't update your social media with, "I'm letting go of the need to be understood." Because the moment you do that, you're seeking understanding for your not needing understanding. You've turned the elimination into another performance. Real transformation is invisible. It happens in the darkness of your own consciousness. Others will notice that something has changed about you. You're calmer, more present, less reactive, less needy, more authentic. But they won't be able to put their finger on exactly what's different. And that's perfect. Because the changes you're making are not for them. They're not to impress anyone or to be seen as enlightened or evolved. They're for you, for your own freedom, for your own peace, for your own authenticity. Let me tell you what happens when you quietly eliminate these 10 things. First, you become profoundly lonely, not because you're isolated, but because you're different from most people around you. You're no longer playing the games they're playing. You're no longer buying the illusions they're buying. And this creates a gap, a distance, even with people you love. But then, gradually you find others who have made similar eliminations. And with these people, there's an instant recognition, a depth of connection that's impossible with those who are still caught in the games. You discover that real companionship exists not with those who share your interests or your background, but with those who share your level of consciousness. Second, you become simple. Not simple-minded, but simple in the way a tree is simple, the way water is simple. You're no longer complicated by all the unnecessary mental and emotional baggage you were carrying. You become direct, clear, easy to be around. Third, you become unreliable to the old world. People who knew you before will be confused. You're not showing up the way you used to. You're not playing your old roles. You're not responding to the old manipulations. They might accuse you of changing, and they'll mean it as a criticism, but you'll hear it as a confirmation. Fourth, you become alive in a way you've never been before. Because all those things you eliminated, they were weights holding you down, clouds blocking your sun, noise drowning out the silence. Without them, you're lighter, clearer, more present, more real. But here's the paradox. The more you eliminate, the more you realize there's nothing to eliminate. Because all these things, these needs and beliefs and addictions, they were never really there in the first place. They were just thoughts, just patterns, just habits of mind. When you look directly at them, they dissolve. So in the end, you're not really eliminating anything. You're waking up from the dream that there was ever anything to eliminate. You're recognizing that you were always free, always whole, always home, You were just believing a story about being trapped, incomplete, lost. And when you wake up from that story, you don't announce it. You don't explain it. You don't defend it. You simply live from the freedom you've discovered, quietly, naturally, without making a show of it. Because real freedom doesn't need an audience. Real transformation doesn't need validation. Real awakening happens in silence, in the privacy of your own being, where no one else can see it. And by the time others notice that something fundamental has changed about you, you're already beyond the need for them to notice. You're already living a completely different life, right in the middle of the same circumstances. You've eliminated what needed to be eliminated, not by fighting against it, but by seeing through it. This is the art of quiet transformation, not making declarations or announcements, not seeking credit or recognition, just making the changes that need to be made, letting go of what needs to be let go, becoming who you actually are beneath all the should-bes and trying to be's. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to tell anyone. The transformation speaks for itself. Your presence becomes different, your energy becomes different, the way you move through the world becomes different, and people feel it, even if they can't articulate what's changed. So these 10 eliminations, they're not really a program or a practice. They're more like invitations to see clearly, to let go naturally, to return to what's always been true. And you do this work alone, in silence, in the secret places of your own heart, where real change has always happened. Don't tell anyone, just do it, quietly, completely, and watch how everything changes when you stop trying to change anything and simply let go of what was never real to begin with. That's the secret. The greatest transformations are invisible, the deepest eliminations leave no trace, and the most profound freedom is the freedom no one knows you have, because you're no longer concerned with anyone knowing. You're just free, quietly, completely, utterly free. And that's enough.